For the Investing News Network from the MJBiz International Show in Toronto, I'm Brian McGovern, here today with Darren Bondar, the President and CEO of Inner Spirit Holdings. Darren, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. Appreciate it. It's been a great conference so far, and see where the next couple days take us.
So, Darren, obviously the retail market in Canada has seen quite a tumultuous path so far in 2019. An analyst actually told me that the biggest challenge to the Canadian market as a whole, from his perspective, is this slow rollout for these stores. Is that something that you would agree on?
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight overall. Definitely in the early stages in BC and Alberta and Saskatchewan, who were the first really main private provinces that allowed for private retail, it took a long time for stores to get open. In some cases, ourselves and our franchise partners and our competitors were sitting on leases for anywhere from 12 to 18 months, waiting for all the different levels of regulation to get their licenses. So BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, they took months. But now that there's kind of supply stability and the market's opened up, and there isn't a waiting list queue in Alberta, it's a lot easier to roll out stores. So Spearleaf just opened 15 stores alone last month and another 10 this month. So kind of that backlog is being cured, and I think once Ontario opens up, hopefully that the analyst who made that comment, it's a challenge of the past.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Ontario. That's one of the markets that's received a lot of criticism in terms of its decision to elect to forego the open market that it had promised at first, and now this lottery system, and now there's potential for it to change as well. Tell me a little bit about the challenge when it comes to participating in a lottery or seeing it. Tell me, please, more about the way that the company has elected to go about this lottery process. And we've seen a lot of these established retailers like yourself and other public players search partnerships with the license winners. How competitive is that market, and is that something that you're pursuing constantly or looking at now that we're through the second lottery in Ontario?
For sure. So the first lottery was really important to us to partner up with one of the winners, as we want to establish ourselves in the market, and we were successful at doing that and partnering with one of the winners in Kingston and being one of the first stores to open in Ontario on April 1st. The second lottery is a little bit different. You've got 42 winners, and by all accounts, we think that there's really only a 90-day head start until the legislation comes in, and in fact the Ontario government opens up a free market, which they've indicated they want to do to stamp out the illicit market. So we hope that Ontario is going to do as they've said and follow federal mandate to help stamp out the illicit market, and the only way that's going to happen is if they allow retailers and experienced industry players to open stores. Now you've got 42 lottery winners who are all looking for brand partnerships, and granted they have their reasons for it, but we also need to show a return on capital to our investors and our shareholders for these license agreements to make sense. And I think the expectations and some of the deals that may or may not get done are too far-fetched for us to really have an interest in participating, and I think patience might be the actual winning ticket here.
That's very interesting. Tell me a little bit about some takeaways that you've seen so far in terms of the actual competition between these stores. Obviously, as we've been mentioning, a bit of a slow rollout, a complicated rollout with Ontario as well. But a lot of these stores are operating, a lot of these public companies like yourself that are banking on this idea of the retail networks across Canada. Tell me of some things that you've learned, that you've seen, that maybe you say, here's an advantage for retail stores in between, because a lot of the times investors see these store pitches and they see companies that are saying, we're going to be the Apple store of cannabis, right? So when you start to differentiate it between one store and the other, what is the key thing that maybe you start to see as this is a real advantage for us, or there's a real advantage that I'm seeing in the market?
Great question. Well, now there's 250 plus stores in Alberta, and as the market matures and maybe even begins to saturate, it's going to come down to retail fundamentals. And with Spearleaf, we built our company on the back that we've got 20 years of retail experience. We built it on people, and we invested a lot of money in our brand because we knew once this hype was over and the inflated store volumes were done as the market opened up, that a good retail and a good customer experience, well-trained staff, and great selection are going to win the day. So I think you'll see some market compression starting in late 2020 and 2021, and those that survive are going to be the ones that realize that once this whole cannabis hype is over, you still have to run a good retail business that provides all the important tenements of retail, and that's where we invested, and I think that we're well set up for success.
You know, edibles are coming into play in Canada for sure. That's something that everyone's really excited about at this conference and all across the country. From the retail point of view, that's another sort of boost to incentivize people who are maybe curious about the products, who may be interested in trying out some of these new products such as beverages or vape pens, things like that are maybe a bit more welcoming. How are you getting ready for that opening? Obviously, a slow rollout. Health Canada has indicated it'll take some time, but an area that's of such interest, how are you preparing your stores, your staff, everybody to be ready for that opening?
Good question. So we've been preparing since the beginning because we actually thought that, and still think that Cannabis 2.0 is going to be the real tidal wave. So we've already kind of done design of our stores. We're already talking to our partners about education, ensure our staff are well educated, getting an idea of what's going to be hitting the market in terms of edibles and vape pens and beverages, and just ensure that we have the top selection and a well-trained staff. We're going to be able to introduce new customers to these to this Cannabis 2.0 wave that's coming. Because I think today you're seeing a lot of existing users in our stores and maybe some curious new onlookers. But I think once Cannabis 2.0 comes, you're really going to see a lot more new users, and having that established retail footprint and having this run up to that is, I think, being a good competitive advantage.
Well, Darren, thank you so much for all your answers today. From the MJBiz International Show in Toronto, I'm Brian McGovern.